Thanks for attending the Digital Workplace Strategy Summit. In this session, we're going to be talking about how and why to improve your ACM maturity.
We'll be doing some quick introductions, talking about the ACM maturity model, the importance of ACM, and then improving and measuring ACM.
I'm Jennifer Robinson. I'm a managing consultant at Catapult Systems. I've been with Catapult for about 8 years. I'm a project manager and a ProSci certified change manager.
And I am Stephanie Williams. I'm a senior consultant at Catapult Systems, and I've been in the ACM world for about 10 years.
We're going to be looking at how Catapult's maturity model can help you with adoption and change management, which we will refer to sometimes as ACM. And throughout this presentation, you'll see a QR code on the lower left, and you can scan that anytime to reach out to a Catapult expert.
You may have seen Catapult's digital workplace maturity model in other sessions, but you'll notice that it focuses on a number of different areas, including ACM. We work with clients that range anywhere from that base level all the way up to already excelling at ACM.
And we work with our clients wherever they are. So you may be anywhere on this model, and it takes a lot of time to get to these different levels. So we'll meet you where you are and help you move up to that next level.
If you haven't done a lot of ACM in your organization, you might wonder why it's important.
And one of the key ways that I've seen that matter is avoiding that technically successful failure. So one great example of this is the project I was on where we were moving a client from a legacy application that was used every day on their factory floors to a new custom SharePoint application. And we took the time to go around the country actually to different factories and talk to the people who were using those applications so that we really understood how that was going to change their day-to-day work and that we weren't doing anything that was going to disrupt their business or affect their bottom line. We also built in time for those users to test the application so that we could make any adjustments needed to make that easier for them to use. And that really made a difference in the end result of the project. I've often seen clients be afraid to pull in additional people into the project. I think there's a fear that it might add complexity, but in my experience, that has always improved the end result of a project.
Yeah, I agree. You'll also see ACM have a really big impact on how the project or change is received or perceived by your end users. For example, I worked with a client who was moving from on-prem deployments of SharePoint and Exchange, and they were moving into Office 365. Their end users, as far as they were concerned, didn't see a lot of change. There was certainly a lot of lift that they needed to do to migrate into Office 365, but they didn't see the value of it. But using ACM, we were able to work with those business users and show them that they weren't just picking up and moving. They were getting all of these additional tools. They were getting Teams and Forms and Power Automate and getting this, huge increase in their business value for these tools. And ACM played a huge part in showing them that value.
Yeah, that's really important. We also wanted to talk to you about some specific ways that we've seen organizations improve their ACM maturity. So the first one on the left is representation. So we've been talking about that some in terms of pulling people in. Another really important aspect of representation is getting good support from your leadership. So that could be your project executive sponsor, your steering committee, your sponsor network. And one way I've actually seen that not go well is I've been on an intranet project where we didn't have good sponsorship, and that did turn into a technically successful failure. We built a great intranet, we built sites for them, we had even site owners, but no one was holding those site owners accountable to get their content entered on the page, and so we started missing deadlines. So I've really seen the impact of not having good leadership support.
Yeah, and I mean, I think representation, certainly people think about leadership and having that kind of stakeholder support, but it's also important to remember your business users and make sure that they're represented. A good way to do that is to have a good champions program. And I've seen champions program have some huge impacts on a project because you get all of those people within the business units who are getting all of the information ahead of time. They have direct contact with the project team, and they're able to see that impact within their individual business units and work with their peers to show the different business processes that are going to be impacted and how the value can be found within those business processes.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're hearing us talk, you might be wondering about how much this costs and what's involved to invest in ACM in terms of resources. So I wanted to talk to you about how we start our process and how we adapt it to different projects. So all of our ACM projects start out with a series of workshops and assessments. So our goal there really is to understand your business culture, 'cause every company culture is different. And the way your company culture is will affect how we communicate with your users. We also want to understand what else is going on in your company at the same time. Who does this project impact? Is it everybody? Is it some specific people? Is this a business critical change or something that people don't have to use, but we want them to use it? So if you're doing an intranet, that's something people could get by and do their job without looking at it. So we want to create activities that get people to that new site and get them engaged with it. Whereas if you're doing something like a business critical application that's could impact your bottom line, we want to do a lot more focused activities, working with those users, making sure they're trained and they understand what's happening and they're not surprised by anything so that that doesn't impact your business. So we really tailor our approach to each project to make sure that it's appropriate for the work we're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, another area of this that we're looking at that certainly requires some investment up front, but it makes a lot of difference in the end is creating standardization for your ACM process. And that doesn't necessarily mean creating like cookie cutter things that you have to do for each specific project. It's more about creating standardized processes or standardized modes of communication. So maybe creating communication channels with your audience. So for example, you might have some standard communication channels in SharePoint or through email or through things like Yammer, like an internal social network, so that your audience knows how to get this information and where it's coming from, and they're not looking around to find information about that change.
Yeah, that can really create efficiencies later. And I also like to build on that standardization to add some fun activities. And one great example of that is I did a Windows 10 update with a client once, which maybe doesn't sound like the most fun project, but we helped make that fun for the users. We had a roll up or an update we wanted people to kick off before the mandatory deadline so that they could pick their time that was convenient for them for their update. So to encourage that, we threw an ice cream party in the company's cafeteria, and we invited everybody to come to the party. The messaging was kick off your update and come join us for this party while you're waiting for your computer to update. And we had really great success with that and had a really high rate of people voluntarily finishing their update before that mandatory deadline.
That was a great idea. I like that.
It's fun.
So when we talk about measuring the maturity or measuring your ACM as a whole, we talk about standard KPIs, which can be very intimidating, but really a KPI is just a way for you to manage the success of your change. And there's different types of KPIs that you can manage or that you can measure. Some of those are going to be enterprise KPIs, so things that maybe your entire enterprise wants to measure with every single project you're doing. And those could be things like user experience, adoption of the tool or change, or knowledge retention for the training that you do. But you're also going to want to do specific KPIs for each project that you do, because it's going to be very specific to what change you're making. So for example, if you're doing a Teams rollout, it might be helpful to gauge or to measure reduction in email. If you're doing some sort of knowledge-based product, so you're rolling out, here's a place to get all of the information about a specific tool, that would certainly increase productivity, and you could measure that. That's something that you could create a KPI on and measure.
Absolutely. And I've seen clients use all different kinds of tools to do that. Some of our clients purchase some additional tool like tygraph to help them get additional metrics. But lots of our clients also use the free metrics that come with that Microsoft licensing. And we often do some additional things like sending out user surveys to add on to that data we can get off of those dashboards. And I know I've seen some clients say, well, if we finish the scope of the project, isn't this successful? But the benefit of adding KPIs is that it allows you not just to know that you finished the work, but that you did it successfully according to some metrics that you set up for yourself ahead of time. And it allows you to go back to your leadership, your sponsor, your steering committee, and really show them why you were successful and you're able to demonstrate that. It also allows you the opportunity, if you're not hitting some of those metrics, to make adjustments. So it gives you the opportunity to be proactive. So you can say, oh, well, if we're not hitting this metric, why is that? And do we need additional communications or training or activities to remedy that? And it gives you the chance to get ahead of that before you start to see a bigger problem.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for watching this session. I hope you got some good information out of it. If you'd like to contact Catapult about our ACM offerings, you can use the QR code on the left.
And we'd love to hear how we did today. So if you'd like to provide feedback on this presentation, you can use the QR code on the right. And thank you for coming today, and we hope that we'll get to talk to you again.
Yeah, thank you.